This is a new program we're offering this first go round. And the focus is really on how do we deliver public services. Pretty much everyone in the public sector and many in the nonprofit sphere are responsible for doing this. And the real core that we're trying to focus on is how do we make sure we do that with quality, equity, and efficiency. So let me begin by asking you to think about the last time you were the recipient of a public service. Maybe it was getting your license renewed. Maybe it was registering your child for school. Maybe it was getting a COVID test or vaccine. And what I'd like you to do is think back to that experience and do some grading of it in 3 dimensions: quality, equity, efficiency. From a quality perspective, did you get what you expected and wanted? From an equity perspective, were you treated equally and was everyone else treated equally in the receipt of that service? And then finally, from an efficiency perspective, was it respectful of your time, of the person delivering its time, and resources? So think about whether you can say all 3 of those were A's. Well, I can share with you my own experience, which was a COVID vaccine not too long ago. And I would say I did definitely not get all A's across the board. My hypothesis is that for many of you who thought about the issue that I posed, you too can't really say it was all A's. Now, I want to make this from a generic to a personal, and the personal is now I want you to think about your own organization. And I want you to think about how you would grade how your own organization delivers public services. Is it an A in terms of quality, efficiency, equity? If you are all A's across the board, I sure hope you'll take the course because we all want to learn from you. But more likely, there were some A's, maybe some B's, maybe a B- now and again. The goal of this course is to help you move from where you are today to getting straight A's in the way in which your organization delivers. So you may ask the question, well, if this is a new program, what's motivating to do it right now? I've been wanting to do it for a while, in part because the students who take my degree course in this area are always calling me afterwards and telling me, hey, I just used this framework or this tool, it was great, but I wish the rest of my organization had the same exposure that I did. Well, it's hard to do that, but the executive education team said, well, we can probably try and make that happen. But there are really 2 more important motivators right now. And the first, and it builds on something you heard from David earlier, is the pandemic. The pandemic has created all kinds of new challenges, but also new opportunities in terms of how we deliver public services. We've seen an explosion in telehealth, as an example. We've certainly seen an explosion in online learning. As we head towards whatever the new normal might be, this is a really important time to think about how do I rethink how I deliver public services. The second reason for right now is the focus in this country, and not just in the US, but in a number of geographies across the globe, a focus on equity. How do we ensure that everyone receives quality and efficient public services? Given these 2 motivations, we decided we're going to launch this and start sharing our approach, toolkit, and frameworks. In terms of how we go about doing it, we'll begin by making sure you can assess and understand what public value is and how to quantify it. We'll leverage some of the concepts that Julie teaches in her course as well, in this course, so that you'll have a good understanding of how do I even estimate public value. A number of us have worked looking at private value, I can assure you of this, spoiler alert, public value is a lot tougher to determine than private value. But we'll do it looking at TSA as well as automated trash collection, kind of two ends of a spectrum. From there, we'll dive into the question about quality. What is it? What are its attributes? How do we know, even in the public sphere, who is the customer? Turns out to be a very challenging question. In this area, we'll be looking at understanding how we frame and get our understanding of what is quality. We'll look to understand processes, we'll map them, we'll do some root cause analysis. For those of you familiar with an Ishikawa diagram or a fishbone, we'll work on those. And more importantly, we'll work towards re-engineering. How do I take a process, identify its gaps, and make it better? From there, we will dive into the issue of equity, and I'll share with you, when it comes to equity, it will be a lens we will use as we look at every case, but there are two specific instances where we will really do a deep dive. One of those is in a crisis, and we'll be looking at Memorial Hospital post-Katrina in New Orleans and see how equity played out in that environment. But we'll also take a look and do a simulation on assigning students to schools. It turns out that the trade-offs we have to make really make it challenging to ensure equity. So you'll get your hands dirty a little bit with that. With those two legs of the stool, we'll turn to our third leg, which is efficiency. It's how well do we use the resources? Here we'll be looking at capacity, throughput. We'll find the bottleneck. We'll, again, leverage our ideas of re-engineering. We'll do some queuing to help you figure out how to manage lines. We'll think about peaks and how you can mitigate peaks, all with an idea of tying back to quality and equity and using our resources as efficiently as we can. From there, we'll move to talk about technology. Technology has a huge impact on how we deliver services. Obviously, there's an explosion of new technologies associated with the pandemic. We'll be looking at that. But we'll also be looking at how can we use technology to extend the reach of our service delivery. I'll share with you a case that I actually think is an all A's case. It is M-Pesa, it's mobile money in Kenya, and it is fabulous. We'll see how we can take that and use it internally. Finally, we'll wrap up thinking about change management and performance measurement and management. You can have the best plans in the world, but if you can't get people to change, it isn't really going to matter. In doing this, along the way, similar to what you heard David talk about in his course, we'll have you bring a challenge that you're facing or your organization is facing right now. And in groups of peers, as well as with me, we'll work through those issues, again, so that when you finish the course, hopefully you'll be in a position to actually make a difference in your organization. At the end of the 2 weeks, in addition to that, you'll have yourself a toolkit and hopefully know how to use all those tools and also how to make your organization at least closer to an all A's organization. I want to also highlight what both of my colleagues mentioned about the network. The opportunity to meet colleagues and leverage their best practices, their insights, both in the course and beyond, is really a tremendous value add that people have taken from the HKS Exec Ed programs. Finally, I'll address the question of who ought to be taking this course. This course is really appropriate if you are responsible for delivering services from education to public safety to healthcare to public works, you name it. If you're delivering a service, this will help you. And even if it's not you directly, if it's people you manage or teams you work with, having this set of skills, I think, can really make a difference for you. Frankly, if you have issues that need resolution, the toolkit will help you in that process.